Thank you guys so much for being here. Hello, how's it going? I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm Abaddon. I'm a WoW streamer, content creator, and if you guys would like to do a quick introduction of yourselves, that would be great.
Sure. I'm Tina Wang. I am Associate Art Director on World of Warcraft, and I art directed The War Within as well as The Ghosts of Koresh.
Hello, I'm Steph Yoon. I'm an assistant lead quest designer, and I was the quest point on Ghost of Koresh. Previously, I was a quest point on Halifal.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. We have some questions about Ghosts of Koresh and 11.2 coming up. So excited to hop into that. Starting off, back in Shadowlands, we spotted Gallywix hanging out with the brokers in Tazavesh. And now, obviously, we know that the brokers are returning as well. Is it safe to assume that the storyline was being set up as far back as Shadowlands, maybe even BFA, with how the Darkheart and the Heart of Azeroth have some similarities?
Yeah, I think that's something that you definitely spotted is, that Galivix has been sort of positioned as someone who's able to work with these sort of artifacts, and we saw all of how that worked out in Undermined, and sort of like the hints that we had at the end of Undermined to coming to Ghosts of Koresh, and it's what we like to do is when we are creating new stories and new content onwards for Ghost of Koresh and for the World Soul Saga as well. We take into account all the things that we have previously depicted and sort of like established as fact, and sort of like lean into that as bringing the story forward using all the details that we've seeded previously.
Yeah, we're always looking for those opportunities to create that visual connectivity for the observant player. And in the World Soul Saga, especially because we have this awesome opportunity with the three expansions, you'll definitely see even more of those visual themes connect as you go deeper into the saga.
Right, just that get that cohesiveness going. That's awesome. Um, so as we know now, with Koresh coming into play officially, the Ethereals have been in the game for a very long time, I believe, since Burning Crusade, and they're now, of course, a major part of this story patch. So I was just curious if there's, if there were any major artistic updates made, and if so, like how exciting was it to remaster that aspect of the game that has been around for so long and make those changes to it in, a new patch with, new assets and things like that.
Yeah, super exciting. Yes, we absolutely updated the ethereals. It's been so long since we've done that, and I think as passionate fans of the game, we always are excited to create it based on how we see it in our memory versus how they might actually look, back in Burning Crusade. And
Right.
so we took those key elements, like them being made of energy, like the wraps, and paid attention even to those little details, like, what is the patterning of the wraps? Like they're doing something very special, right? And able to like constrain the energies of who they are into like a physical form. And what does it take to create that? There's even a bit of lore in the raid and a boss in the raid related to that. So a lot of really fun elements.
One of the things that I was like really excited to see art you guys keep forward was like, for me, I was always captured by ethereals, and whenever they moved, they would leave like little after images of themselves. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to capture that.
That's very cool. Interesting to hear that it will play a part in raid and in encounters and things like that. So really, really excited to see what comes of that. So we did, of course, just mention that those clothing and adornments are, we've seen them on Xal'atath as well. So in the 11.1.7 lore walking scenario, we see Xal'atath kind of being this embodiment of this void being, but without sort of any adornments and just this um, bodiless void. Was that an artistic choice to have Xal'atath represented that way? Because we've always seen her as, more of a physical person per se. Is there more story to unfold there?
Yeah, so I will comment more just on the art portion in that, like, Xal'atath's form, the way she represents herself, is so frightening and alluring because this is the form that she chose for herself to connect with us mortals, not necessarily who she, is as an entity.
Yeah, and to sort of like piggyback off of what Tina is saying, like it's a deliberate choice by Xal'atath. Her presentation in either in all of the World Soul Saga so far, and in Lore Walking, these were deliberate. Stay tuned to learn more. Um, but yeah, and I'm super glad that like people have been enjoying the Xal'atath sections of Lore Walking, because I think it's really cool with the new quest and such in there.
Absolutely, yeah. She's a very cool character. Enjoying seeing her in this expansion and hopefully more in this patch as we go to Crash. Um, so these ethereals we've been talking about, made up of sort of those floating bandages and magic. Is it difficult to write quest content or story content for those, as they don't necessarily have that embodiment that Xal'atath has made for herself, like you mentioned, and trying to connect with us more by looking more like we do? Um, or was the goal to humanize them where they're kind of detached from their bodies at all?
Um, I think that the challenge and everything that's involved with depicting a foreign species is sort of invigorating more than difficult, in that like the opportunity to highlight what makes the ethereal special and what makes them different from us is such a cool challenge for us to tackle. Like, hey, if we are telling stories from their perspective, how would they tell this story? How is that different from any other Azerothian person that we would see normally? And we definitely took that opportunity to explore what that meant, right? Like, what does it mean to not have a body? What does it mean to be an energy person? And there are lore objects and local stories that sort of like explore this concept and try to like relate what the ethereals are to us.
Right. So to kind of make them sort of similar to Xal'atath, how she's trying to relate to us and have that sort of embodiment of being a person.
Yeah,
One
I think that less so that is a deliberate choice from them to try to relate
Right.
to us, but like how we view them as that species. Sorry for cutting you off, Tina.
Oh, no worries. I just wanted to chime in that I think one really interesting element of the ethereals is, and why we go to Koresh at all, is to show what the stakes are of World Soul Saga, right? Koresh is a planet that has been destroyed, its World Soul lost. And what does that mean for the Koreshi people? They were not always energy beings. This is just what they were able to do, and like how they were able to now represent themselves, having based on what happened with their planet. So it's hopefully, even though they don't have faces, it's a story that will really resonate with people, like just the tragedy that happened here.
Absolutely. Hopefully not too much of a glimpse of the future of Azeroth with everything going on. Hopefully. Um, in terms of designing art assets for that entirely different planet of Koresh, um, does it kind of give you the liberty to make new things compared to Azeroth? And if so, what were some of your favorite things to add into that patch?
Yeah, it is really fun because WoW is all about those like fantastical environments, and then sometimes it gets even more fantastical when we go to places like Koresh. So some of my favorite places in the destruction on like the land destroyed areas of Koresh are these glassy areas that you might see a bit in the press kit. They're called we were calling it void glass, but we in our mind it was like the land was destroyed. These areas were touched by a void, and what happened to these? So they're super reflective. You can see nebulas in them, and just the interesting creatures that wander around there as well, just to create that breakup to the devastated land itself. And also the ecodomes that are on Koresh are these opportunities for us to create like not just total destruction, but also beauty. Like what did Koresh look like prior to destruction? The brokers are trying to recreate that in these ecodomes and rebuild what was there.
Right. So it's kind of that mixture of void and, the beautiful land that it used to be that we will still get a glimpse into. Right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. And that land being like not a traditional one, but it was, the land of the biome of a totally different planet, not, a traditional forest. So that'll be
Yeah.
really fun to check out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Something I imagine completely different to what we're used to on Azeroth, which is exciting. We now know after Undermine and the Gallywix cinematic that Azir is not an ally of Xal'atath, as we may have once thought that she was allying with the ethereals. But we don't know why Xal'atath didn't want the heart in the hands of the ethereals. We don't know that yet. So are we in this patch going to find out more on that story of maybe who's on our side, who's not on our side? Maybe that's not exactly what we've been thinking it is up until this point, and maybe one side is trying to power the dark heart, maybe to save us and not destroy us potentially.
Yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned and play. There's definitely a lot of mysteries in Ghost of Koresh waiting for players. And suffice it to say, that is not a dropped thread. We will continue that story within Ghost of Koresh and onwards into the World Soul Saga.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear more on that story. Very excited for that to kind of come to fruition with everything that we've seen so far. And wondering, what is what why does the Xal'atath want Azir to have this and what's going to come of that? So exciting. Um, on a little bit of a different tangent to the Ghosts of Koresh storyline and coming up in this patch, there's been some speculation around the Harronir in terms of, maybe a playable class in the future, maybe they were such a prominent part of the War Within cinematics. So are we going to get to see more about them in terms of, where they come from, and maybe we'll follow them to their homeland, especially Orwena, which is, who's been interacting with us most in the quest lines.
Yeah, I love Orwena.
Me too.
I think that um, I I think that something to keep in mind too is that, like, with the War Within, we are setting up the trilogy, the World Soul Saga. So we have a lot of time and ample opportunity to sort of like link things together and tell a cohesive story among these three expansions. Ghost of Koresh is the last major update for the War Within, but there is further content coming along within War Within as well. And I can't speak to the future. Uh, but I really hope that people are as captivated with Orwena as I am.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed her story so far. I've been very interested to learn more. So hopefully more to come in Midnight, which very excited for that expansion as well. Um, any plans potentially for new classes, new specs? Like we got Og Evoker in 10.1.5. So maybe any suspicions of that coming up in Midnight at this point, it would be, I guess. Maybe Harronir, maybe Ethereals, new playable classes, races.
Yeah,
Um,
we love the player speculation, but just like at this time, we're not have
Yeah,
nothing to
of
share today.
course. Of course.
Love that comes
Understandable.
though.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people like to speculate about is, what's going to be a new class or a new spec, or is there anything in the works? And yeah, that's we all have, I think, our own identities when it comes to our character and what we play and how we play it. So I think that's always a big one that people are very, very curious about, but understandable that that's a future thing to talk about. So
yeah, and I mean, speaking for myself personally, I love reading the speculation. I love watching the videos about like, hey, what is coming in 11.2 and stuff like that. But yeah, so I love that the fan base is so invested, and I love seeing all the speculation.
yeah, absolutely. Same for me. Leading up to this interview, of course I had to go do the research. I was like, what do people want to know? What are people thinking about? What are they speculating? Where do people think we're headed in terms of story or design, and versus maybe what's actually coming out. So that was an aspect that I thought of as well. What is the community thinking? So cool to know
That's
that you
some
guys
pretty
take that
observant
into
players.
consideration. Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes the theories they come up with are beyond anything I would have ever been able to think about, but it's very interesting to see them talk about it. Yeah. Okay, well, that was all the questions I had for you today. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for chatting with us. Yeah, it's really great to yeah, chat with you.
Yeah, it was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much.